Your finger finds it in the dark first, before the light switch even. A little toggle on the fan housing, smaller than a coin. Flip it. The sound changes. Wait a few seconds. The air changes direction on your skin. Most people have owned this thing for 10 years. Never touched that switch. Not once. Here's what almost nobody knows. That switch doesn't touch the blades. Doesn't touch the speed. It reverses the entire motor. And that one flip can cut real money off your winter heating bill. So, why does it exist? The answer starts in 1882 on a factory floor in New Jersey. Questions that sound simple and turn out not to be are the whole business of the smart side. A man named Philip Diehl built electric motors for Singer sewing machines, small motors meant to replace the foot pedal. But Diehl's motor was too strong, way more power than a sewing machine needed. So he did something odd. He bolted 2 blades onto the shaft, hung the whole thing from the ceiling. Electric light bulbs were 3 years old at that point. Diehl had just built one of the first electric ceiling fans on the planet, almost by accident, out of leftover horsepower. For 70 years, that fan did exactly one thing: push air straight down. Perfect in July. Useless in January. Here's the actual problem. Warm air rises. It always has. So in winter, heat pools up near your ceiling, while your feet freeze on the floor 6 feet below it. A fan that only pushes down can't touch that gap. It just blows cold air harder. A second setting. Flip the switch. The motor spins backward. Now the blades pull air up through the center instead of shoving it down. You don't feel a breeze from this mode. That's the part people get wrong. What actually happens is quieter. The fan drags the warm air pooled at the ceiling, flings it out toward the walls, and it sinks back down on its own evenly without ever touching you directly. Here's a number worth sitting with. Ceiling air in an average room can hit 75, even 80 degrees in winter. The floor below it, 65. That's a 15-degree gap in the same room for no reason except heat rising. Reverse the fan, and you close most of that gap without touching the thermostat at all. The Department of Energy has actual figures on this. A reversed fan running alongside your heater lets most homes drop the thermostat about 4 degrees and still feel just as warm. 4 degrees sounds small. It isn't. Heating costs climb roughly 3% for every degree you push the thermostat up. 4 degrees back is a real dent in a real bill, coming from a switch smaller than a coin, one most people have never flipped. If that number surprised you, hit like now. That's genuinely the reason this channel keeps digging these up. So if the switch matters this much, why is it hidden where nobody can find it? Not on purpose. It's mechanical, not secretive. The switch sits on the motor housing because that's the shortest wire path to reverse the current. Less copper, fewer failure points, cheaper to build. Fan makers in the 1950s weren't designing for someone squinting up at their ceiling 40 years later with a phone flashlight. They were designing for whatever was cheapest to wire that week. Never got replaced. Remotes got bolted on. Smart home controls got added. Apps, voice commands. But that tiny manual toggle stayed, because it's still the only part of the fan that can do this specific job. Full motor reversal, not just speed. One more piece of Diehl's story, because it explains the shape of the thing above your head. Around 1904, he mounted a light fixture onto that same fan body. That's the light and fan combo now hanging in probably 100 million houses. He never patented the reversing switch himself. Other engineers bolted that on decades after he'd moved on to other inventions. refining a motor he'd already left behind. There's a stranger footnote, too. The ceiling fan wasn't a one-off. It was a pattern with the man. So the fan spinning above you right now, no matter how sleek or app-controlled it looks, is still running on the exact idea Diehl bolted together in 1882. A motor too strong for its actual job, repurposed to move air around a room. That's the loop closed. The switch your fingers found in the dark isn't a spare part, and it isn't a design mistake somebody forgot to fix. It's a 140-year-old patch for one dumb, expensive problem. Warm air floating uselessly over your head while your feet stay cold on the floor. Subscribe before you go. We're about 20 seconds from done here, and this is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists for. The small, ignored parts of ordinary objects that turn out to have a real story wired into them. Next time you reach up in the dark and find that switch, you'll know exactly what you're touching and which direction actually helps you.